Welcome to the Range Podcast. I'm Ricky Bruley, and with me is Jake Hollywood Iverson. Join us at the Archery Range, where we'll tell stories from the hunt, discuss technical bow shooting tactics and gear, and pick the brains of some of the most successful people to ever shoot a bow. Whether you're about to shoot that X for the win or send an arrow at a trophy buck, this podcast is for you. The Range Podcast is brought to you by Vapor Trail Archery, makers of the best bowstrings money can buy, originators of limb-driven arrow rest technology, and innovators of Stokerized stabilizer systems. Welcome to The Range. I'm Ricky Bruley, and joining me, as always, is Hollywood. What's happening, bud?
Not much, man. Just enjoying this talk, I guess. I don't know.
Right? Like
hanging out.
A little bit of a breather from the insanity that's going on right now in the office.
Yeah, we're getting creamed right now. Every which way. Pro shop, office, strings, rests, everything.
Yeah.
So
all coming at us at once.
Nice little breather.
It's usually how it goes, and we've been there before, so, but
Yep.
This is a nice little retreat from that, I should say. Well, thank you for joining us today, everybody. You can also find the video version of this episode on the Vapor Trail YouTube channel, so please head on over and subscribe. On the show today is a good buddy of mine, and in many ways, he's responsible for the direction my life took in my mid-20s, and most certainly the reason for my obsession with archery. I cut my teeth backcountry bow hunting with him, and a very good amount of the knowledge I have with that was taught by him. He's a very successful hunter with a bow, both traditional and compound, and I'm super proud to know him, Mr. Ben Guttormson. Thanks for joining us today, man.
How's it going, guys?
Pretty good, man.
The beard's looking solid.
Thank you.
It's looking good.
Long time no talk.
Yeah, no, it's been a minute.
A little bit. Even though I'm bothering you here and there, I think every week, and I know you reach out to Rick trying to catch him, but
trying to catch me.
Yeah.
No, man, either one of you guys are always welcome to reach out. Anything I could ever do to help you, I'm here. So lucky to call you guys friends.
Well, that's very nice of you to say, man. Appreciate that.
Here. Yeah, and for everyone that's watching, he is on the road today and working, so he's taking a podcast in his Lexus vehicle. So he's doing God's work right now while he's working.
Passes the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cruising,
exactly.
Got the arrows in the back. I like it. And just for the listeners, so you are a territory rep for OutTech.
Yeah, regional manager. There's a bunch of things you could call me, I guess. But yeah, so I cover multiple states for sales and service or sales and marketing agency.
Mm-hmm.
So
How many bows do you got in there with you when you're traveling?
I carry a few. It's hard to carry everything.
Right.
And obviously, at this point in the season, everybody's seen most things, but you have to have representation of a little bit of everything. So you put in the important stuff, and I mean, here before too long, we're going to be talking about 2024 products. So
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy how quick time is flying, man. Speaking of PSE bows, loving mine. Never thought I'd shoot a PSE ever again. Ever since the Polaris I got way back in '96. But I tell you what, man, you got me talked into it. You kept trying to get me to shoot your bows, and I kept turning it down because I had a feeling I was gonna want to switch. And lo and behold, here I am. But again, no regrets with that. I love the bow. It's shooting awesome. So.
I think I remember that. It was 2 years ago. It was an EVL 34, right? With the EC cam, and I had my personal bow, and I was shooting 80 pounds then. And you were like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to pull that back." And you pulled it back. You're like, "That's not at 80 pounds." One of those like awe moments. Like, really? And then I think I had a weight tester, and I showed you, and you're like, well, I I could,
Yep.
that's got to feel even better at 70. So.
Yeah, I remember too.
it.
I was like, prove it, and it was at TAC in Big Sky,
Yep.
and I'm like, that's not 80, and you're like, sure is. I'm like, prove it, and of course he's got a scale right there in the tent. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I'm like, he rigged that thing or something.
What's amazing, like how efficient bows are now. It's just they draw back so much smoother, and like we've got that bow that I've been bothering Ben about. That's an 80-pounder. Draws basically like my prime at 80 pounds. It's like this feels like my 70-pounder from 10 years ago. Like,
what is that? That's the Evo
XF. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That's the bow that Ryan Haynes auctioned off for the Isaac Ailman deal, and somehow one of our members managed to win it. So now that bow is in our shop. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Cool.
He got loaded up with everything. I mean, method arrows, the Kifaru setup, and dialed, and R-rest, all that stuff. It's pretty badass setup he's got now.
It was wasn't it like a $6,000 package or something in the end? I mean,
there had to be at least that. The amount of stuff he got from, because Origin Camo, I think, also jumped in on it, and he got a bunch of stuff from them, and like it's just nuts, just insane,
crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. So we go way back. A lot of people probably don't know this, but you actually first introduced me to Steve and Jared Fondy of Vapor Trail, and that's part of why I was saying that you're responsible for the direction my life took, because that's where once Sportsman's Warehouse shut down, that's the direction I took, and now I'm still here like 17 years later, so it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember what year it was, but I think it was like around 2004, 2003 that we met. Is that right?
It was probably 2005, because 2004 I was living in Phoenix, and then when I was living in Fargo working at Sportsman's Warehouse, you were working at the Coon Rapids Sportsman's Warehouse as the archery lead, and then you came over for a shoot.
Okay.
For a 3D shoot, and then so that's when I first met you, and that's when you were like, hey dude, you need to shoot this limb driver. But
yes.
Yeah, so put it on my bow, and I've been shooting them ever since.
There you go.
There
you go. The first inaugural limb-driven system ever introduced.
Yep.
Jared took a Tiger Tough and reversed the spring, put a left-handed spring on it, and then attached the cord to the limb.
Yep, exactly.
And he's like, oh, check this out, it works. And it works quite well. So
it's funny, too, because when they presented the idea to Tiger Tough, they turned it down.
Yeah.
And now no one knows about them at all.
Do they? I don't even know if they still exist.
I don't think so. I don't think they
not.
exist at all anymore. I had no idea that was the thing until I think you told me that it came from a Tiger Tough.
Yeah.
I think they may have been absorbed by one of those other companies like a Golden Key Futura or something like that back in the day.
Probably, NAP or something.
Yeah. So, but Tiger Tough had that unique design with they had the forks that went out, and it made for a little bit more difficulty getting fletching clearance on a 3-fletch arrow because there was more surface contact with the shaft. So, but it held the arrow so much better for like tree stand hunting and stuff like that. So crazy stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And so not only are you the reason for my obsession with archery and taught me a lot about what I know as far as, backcountry bow hunting and all that kind of stuff, but also paved the way for, me becoming a bow technician, and taught me a lot of what I learned in the beginning. And, and still every once in a while, it's like I'm having a struggle, right? And I know you're a guy that I can reach out to, for tips and tricks on how to solve issues when it comes to archery equipment. You're very knowledgeable in that area.
Oh, appreciate that. Thank you.
So going back to Sportsman's Warehouse, I wanted to tell kind of a funny story, because actually the first time I met Steve, I I first started working in Coon Rapids Sportsman's Warehouse with you, you were like, you got to put these Vapor Trail bowstrings on. You got to put them on. So I'm like, yeah, sure. Go. If you can order me a set, that'd be great. And so Steve come walking in one day, and I think about 12 times I had to say, hey, did you order those strings yet? Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll get to it. Hey, did you order those strings yet? Oh yeah, I'll get to it.
This is for your personal bow, or is this for a customer?
For the bow I was shooting at the time?
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it was a Bowtech Allegiance 2005. Finally got them ordered. Steve came into the shop, and this was the first time I ever met him. He walked back to the archery counter, and he brought the strings up, and they were pink. And I was like, oh, hey, well, whose are these for? And Ben, you looked at me and you're like, well, these are yours. I was like, what? I'm pretty sure I ordered red and black, I think. And you were like, well, it's a shade of red. And then Steve's kind of looking at you going, what the heck, because he had no idea that you were going to order pink strings for my bow. And then, so I was like, well, I'm not putting those on my bow. And then made the mistake of leaving my bow there overnight and came in the next day, and Ben had the pink strings on my bow, and it was all tuned and ready to go. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I rocked them. But that was classic, stuff that we would do, to each other, for the most part. I mean,
that's the thing to do now, though, Rick. Back then, it was a different time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, what do you mean by that specifically?
Different podcast, different day, I think. Just leave it at
that. All right. I was going to see if you would actually be willing to say it, but
were you fairly new to the shop at the time when Ben did that? Because you had just moved, right?
Yeah, I wasn't there for more than a couple weeks at that point.
Oh, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's got to be a little bit of hazing on the new guy.
Yeah. And I was an assistant manager, so I was like the floor manager, but I spent 90% of my time in archery. I hung out in archery with Ben and just watched him tune bows and worked on bows, and every minute I could get, I was in the archery department. And but yeah, so then that's where my passion, and that's where we started doing some out west prairie hunting. I remember, I think it was that fall, 2006, I believe, you were headed out, and you're like, hey man, come with me. You can, I didn't have a tag, but it's just like, just come with. You can film for me, and you can kind of see how it goes down. And so we cruised out there, and it was an absolute blast. Been hooked ever since.
And you weren't hunting at the time; you were just going along for tag along.
Yeah, I didn't have a tag, so I just and the whole concept of, I didn't really even know at that time that there was any other bow hunting other than just hunting whitetails out of a tree stand. Yeah. That's how green I was to the whole thing. And I mean, I had shot my bow for a long time, but not really. I wasn't really dedicated. I had that PSE for 10 years.
Right.
Or something like that. And I would take it out once in a while when I was living in Duluth, but never really got out much. And then it was when I started working for Sportsman's that I got that Allegiance.
And I really only asked too because I was like 10 at the time. So like I'm sure back then you could maybe just go and over the counter tag back then maybe, but these days you're waiting 3 years for a lot of these states.
Yeah.
Up to 8. So
yeah. Well, actually no, back then it was it was a draw, but all you really had to do was get your application in by the deadline, which I think, Ben, I don't know if you remember, it was like end of February, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, it was right before my birthday. So
yeah,
my birthday was March 3rd. So if you applied, they mailed you a tag.
Yeah.
God.
And I think we hunted in this specific area for 7 straight years, probably.
Oh yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and so and even when did you move to Montana?
I moved to Montana the spring of 2007. So I think it was 2004, 5, and 6 when we screwed around out there.
No, it had to be. No, it had to be because again, I didn't meet you till 2005. Either way, it was
that first year. Maybe you came out that first year because you didn't have any friends because you just moved and.
I didn't have any friends. You were my only friend, man.
Well, glad I was there to support you in that time of your life. But
Yeah, I guess.
You came out to North Dakota with me, and then I pretty much just bossed you around and yelled at you like the whole time.
That was pretty much about how it went down. I was like your little bitch for the whole week.
Well, I remember getting my Tacoma high centered, and you're like, yeah. I remember seeing a video where, yeah, so much for Tacoma's being like awesome. I don't know if you remember that, but you dished it back plenty. So.
What was that?
No,
I missed
man,
that.
You dished it back just as much.
Oh,
so we had a great relationship where we just pretty much gave each other shit all the time.
Yeah, I mean, and I dished it up as much as I dared to because, I mean, you're about two of me, so, you know, I didn't, you know, and you had no qualms about wrestling, you know, or just throwing down, and you would put me in some sort of pretzel every single time, and so I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to deal with that. So, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things, I guess, you know what I mean? I got thick skin, so it doesn't bother me none, and obviously my pipsqueak ass isn't gonna it probably has no chance of offending you, so.
Yeah, I mean, they're just words. It's nothing really bothers me that much.
Yeah. But Matt, we had a lot of really good times. Some probably like you said, another podcast, another time, probably some things we can't even talk about. But yeah, I mean, you know, all that hunting we did, we've got some like amazing stories. You know, you were there for when I shot my first and second mule deer out there. The second one was that really long shot. You're my only legit witness to that, and that was one of those moments where it's like, you know, I'm doubting myself, and you're like, dude, you can do this. I mean, there's no wind, and you've been practicing out, you know, long distance. You can do this. It's like, okay, I guess, you know. And so that was pretty awesome.
Was that with the Bowtech Allegiance too?
No, that was with the 82nd Airborne.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So a little bit newer.
Yeah. And a funny story about that bow, too, the reason I got the 82nd Airborne is I was actually shooting a Guardian, and I was just getting ready to go out to hunt with Ben in November. I think it was probably the year before. And I had all my gear packed into my vehicle, and someone broke into my vehicle right in the parking lot of Sportsman's warehouse and stole everything. They got everything. I had a gun in there. I had my bow, all my hunting clothes, everything gone.
Right before your trip.
I was going to leave that day. Yeah.
I remember
Did you walk
that.
right back
that
in
was,
the store?
Oh, that was terrible. And then luckily my buddy Cal was, he's like, well, hey, you can just take my bow. And, you know, he let me use his gear, and I didn't end up having an opportunity, but I had his bow, at least so I could get out there and run around, you know, with a bow in my hands.
Right.
But, yeah, and so then I think that might have actually been, I don't know, maybe it was the second or third year. It's hard to keep track. There's so many years we went out there and sometimes we go a couple times a year, you know, and while you were in Montana, you'd cruise over and then I'd meet you. And a couple times your old man would come out. That was a blast having your dad out there. That was fun. Do you remember that? Do you remember that one year your dad was out there with us? It might have been the first year actually, and we were just running, and gunning, trying to get over the next ridge, You know, we'd see a couple deer and we'd try to go get closer and close the distance right away. And your dad got pretty gassed right away and was just like, this is silly. I'm not going to keep doing this with you guys. And so he just parked and he's like, you guys go. I'm just going to sit here. And in the end, when we came back out, we found him and he ended up seeing more deer than we did just by sitting there.
Yep.
That was funny.
Man, I've learned a lot since then in terms of being proficient as a hunter. I mean, not always is moving around all the time the best recipe, you know?
Right.
Being concise in your movement and positioning yourself in the right spot and spending as much time in the right spot is what it's about. So,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
it brings back a lot of memories and stuff, and kind of reminds you of where you came from, you know, the mistakes that you had to make to learn certain things and everything.
Right. Right.
It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I think I'm lucky because Rick helped me with that last year before it was my first ever time going out west at all, and my learning curve was expedited, exponentially because Rick's like, don't go walking around all over all day. Like, just find a spot, like you're saying, Ben, find it, put yourself in a good spot and sit and wait. Just watch, because you're probably going to see more and learn more by watching what they're doing. Then you position yourself again. And if I hadn't had that tiny little bit of knowledge, but my God, I think I would have been screwed, because every time you think out west, you think of all these, CrossFit boys running around, just high heart rate and just running up and down hills, and all these stocks and everything. Where honestly, it's half the truth.
Yeah.
I'm just like it.
The most important muscle to exercise when you're in the field is your brain.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's the one aspect of us as humans that is far superior to any animal. And I think a lot of guys get caught up in the fitness thing. Anybody that knows me, I'm in the car a lot. I'm not in like tip top performance shape, and I'm fortunate. I'm a semi-successful hunter that I think, being smart and spending time is more important than, the being in shape part helps on pack out. That's, you don't want to skip that first step though. So.
Right.
Killing the
Exactly.
animal
And it is. I want to touch on what you were talking about. Like the mistakes that we made back then, and the things that you learn, and all that. I mean, and going back to what you're saying about, running around and everything. I was always impressed with a guy of your stature and how mobile you are. Like, you could fly down a hill so fast. Or I remember there's times where you were going to put a stock on, which is what, in the beginning, most of the time I watched you doing the stocks, because the agreement we had was that first person to spot the deer gets to chase it, right? And, in retrospect, that was a really good way to do things, because it really forced me into trying to figure out, like, what am I looking at? What am I looking for? You know what I mean? Because it was like that challenge, all right? Who's going to be the first one to find them? But still, to this day, I guarantee you're always still probably going to be the first one to spot the deer before I do. And again, it's just about knowing what you're looking for and the experience, and I think I talked about this a little bit on the one of our other podcasts, but I remember, you'd be like, hey, you see those deer over there? I'm like, nope. Okay, do you see them now? And I'm looking through my binoculars, and I'm like, nope, I don't see them. And you're like, okay. So then you'd set your binos up on a tripod and then go, all right, come over here and look. And then I look, I'm like, oh, there is deer over there. What the heck, So even just that, knowing what you're looking for helps out a ton. And then, and that helps, obviously reduce the amount of, the amount of running around you got to do. But at the same time, just like, perseverance and drive. Because I remember when you killed Lefty that one year, it was way back there, and I just remember you were gone. We had no idea where you were. We didn't know what was going on. It was getting dark. We weren't sure what the situation was. So we had a general idea of where you had gone. So it was 4 of us that were out there hunting. But so me and the other 2 guys, we had an idea of where you were. So we just started going in, and it was completely dark out. And here Ben's got this buck on his back, the whole deer, like the whole deer. It wasn't but it was, he broke it down, quartered it, and all that kind of stuff. But he had all 4 quarters, the head, the back straps, everything on his back. And we're just like, holy, and of course it's not to say that he was like, oh, this is easy. He was, struggling, but obviously we were there. So we each kind of took a quarter and then helped him get the rest of the deer out. But I could not believe that. I was like, you have the whole deer on your back. You're insane.
And looking back, I've done that a few times on some deer, and, depending on the situation, 2, 3, 4 miles out, your feet are sore, as long as you're not going to hurt yourself, and I'm kind of built to carry weight. My body type, sure. I'm pretty stout, got big legs and stuff like that. But I never remember any suffering because you're bathing in the success you just had. And
exactly.
It's one of those things. It's unexplainable. There have been a couple times when I've hunted with my buddy Sam, in the prairie, and I told him my plan, and I said, this is where I'm going, this is what I hope to do, and we'll see you later. And I packed a whole animal out, but like quartered, bone-in quartered, with everything like that. But you never remember that part of it. You never remember the sufferfest of you have to really dig deep into your memories to remember that. It's crazy how your mind just kind of forgets that suffering that you go through after the fact. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of suffering, that one mule deer that I shot out there with you, I remember you had a pretty nice pack. I can't remember who made it, and I had like a Badlands like day pack or something like that. Like it was not built for that sort of thing, right? And so we had most of the deer on your pack, and then I think it was like maybe the 2 front quarters in my pack. But we had the head on your pack, and it's like, well, I want to get some pictures with the head, on my back and stuff like that. And you're like, all right, fine. Just, you can put my pack on. I'll snap some pictures, and then we'll switch back. And I'm like, okay, perfect. So I put your pack on, and then you took some really nice photos, which thank you for that, because I cherish those photos. You took some great photos. And then I was like,
no, those are awesome. Those are, I remember those. The one where I lined everything up perfectly, and it looks like you have deer ears and horns coming out of your head.
Yep.
And stuff like that. You'll have to show them on this, like when you air it on the YouTube channel.
I will for sure. I'll post some of those photos up because we got some video too. But I just remember you're like, all right, give me the pack back, and I'm like, all right, see ya, and I just start hiking out. And you're like yelling at me. You're like, you son of a, because you didn't want to carry 2 front quarters in that crappy pack, right? So, and not to say Badlands isn't good. It's just it wasn't the right pack for the job.
It's an unsupported day pack.
But then, so I bailed, and Ben kind of stayed back and then took some shots from a distance too, some photos, and got some really cool photos of that and everything. And so so speaking of, not remembering the pain, right? So I had all that weight on my back and everything, and I'm just kind of getting through, and I get all the way to the bottom, just getting ready to go up the other side. And I don't know, what would you say it was? Probably a mile, maybe all the way across, Ben? Not super far,
maybe a little
but
lower.
Yeah. It wasn't super far, but again, I'm not, I'm not a real big guy, I'm like 5'11", 150 pounds soaking wet. So, but as soon as I get to the bottom, I hear Ben yelling. He's like, Ricky, and I'm like, what? So I look back, and he's up at the top, and he's just like waving me to come up there. And then he just disappears. And I'm like, oh man, what happened? Like, I'm thinking, something bad happened. So I'm like, well, I can't drop the pack. You know what I mean? I don't know if coyotes are going to get it or what. So I hike all the way back up to where I shot that deer. And here's Ben standing there talking to a mountain biker, and the guy said that he spotted a dead deer, like over on this other ridge. And so we were going to go check it out. But so so I hucked that pack that half of the deer all the way back to where we started. So that we could go find this other dead deer. I'm just like, God dang it, Ben. He's just laughing. Classic Ben, just laughing. But he was nice enough to let me continue to take the deer out the whole way with his pack, and he just got some really amazing shots on the way out. So
Are those
cool.
the photos by your desk?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those are awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have that success.
That was that pack was made by Granite Gear.
Oh, it was a Granite Gear. Okay.
So Granite Gear is actually, I think they might have been based out of Minnesota for a while, but
yeah.
they had a military section where they bid on military contracts, and that was a multi-cam pack. And I think it was called the Crew Cab. It just had a big load shelf and a real small bag on the back of a load shelf. And, I mean, back then they were competing against, like, Mystery Ranch for, like, military contracts, and they made, like, rec packs, like Boundary Waters packs and backpacking packs. They still make some really cool stuff that's out there. And I think I still have a Granite Gear pack that my wife uses.
Oh, right on.
Right now.
I want to.
But yeah, I mean, shout out to that brand. I still actually have that pack, Rick, too. That's like one I have not gotten rid of.
Really?
That's what we use for the Boundary Waters. My
That's
dad
crazy.
has a couple of those Granite Gear packs.
I have a Granite Gear portage pack that I use in my canoe.
Yep.
I want to say they were out of Tofty, Minnesota,
I
which
you're
is
right.
up on the North Shore. But I'm
way north Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm looking here on their website, but it doesn't really say. Either way, yeah, they make some pretty good gear. That was a fun trip. That was really cool. And then you were there with me for the first mule deer that I shot. That was that little Forky, but that was pretty cool because I shot him and then it ran up the hill and died right on the road.
Lucky.
So all we had to do was actually what we had to do is we had to get some good pictures, we had to drag it kind of up this hill, and that was some other cool photos that Ben had got with the sun was just setting in the background, and so got some really cool photos. And that was one thing I learned from you too, is taking good quality photos, and a lot. We would take hundreds of photos, hundreds.
Yeah.
You probably still do.
I don't know what it is, but I think social media ruined it for me. Like I take like 4 cell phone pics and stuff like Bill now, and I really need to change that. You know, my kids are growing up. I mean, I'm getting pictures of them with fish left and right and stuff like that, and I got to get back to that. And so I've changed quite a bit since then. It seems like anymore I snap a few cell phone pics.
Yeah.
I don't carry a camera with me, and I really need to get back to that because it really adds to the memory and stuff like that. And like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's social media has like ruined the whole trophy photo. Like I like to keep a lot of my success to myself. I don't post stuff, so it's like, I don't need pictures, but I really need to kind of get back to that. I guess that's a message to anybody that's getting into this.
He needs to wash his hands, it looks like. Here he is.
Are you back? We lost you there for a
second.
Am I in now? All I saw was a flash of the bird.
You want me to start over again?
So where we lost you again was, you're just saying you really got to get back into it. And I think, I and I kind of get it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for as long as I've known you, you've gotten a lot of scrutiny. And it all comes down to your success, and there's people that can't handle other people being successful. And, we used to shoot leagues back in the day, and you were always getting accused of cheating, and it's like people just couldn't understand that someone could shoot a bow that well. And it's just like, and I imagine the same thing goes for the success that you've had with a bow, you know what I mean? Like, and you always put everything you have into it, and God bless your wife, because definitely, she's a big part of your ability to do that. And, but again, that the one year you said you were going to pick up a recurve, and I was like, oh man, that's cool. And you had like one of the best seasons you've ever had, and I can just see people, kind of again, you got to deal with the negativity, right? Because people can't handle your success. And so, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe that's part of what's going on and why you are jaded on social media. And I get it too, because I've been there. I don't do a lot, but I have been more frequently, just out of necessity. But at the same time, whether you post it on social media or not, yeah, I think you definitely got to get back into that, like you said, to create those memories. And
yeah, and I mean, I like to do stuff because of the enjoyment I get out of it, like the experiences that I get to have and stuff like that. And I feel like that's becoming more and more rare. I feel like the pressure to put stuff on the internet to kind of pound your own chest and stuff like that takes from the experience.
Yeah.
You because you're not successful unless you can post a picture of something.
Right.
And a sunset or a landscape picture with you, and it just doesn't cut it. And I don't know. I mean, if I could put a message out there, I mean, don't do things to be a YouTube star. Don't do things to be, the guy on social media. Do things because you like it. Do things because you enjoy it, and act in the field how you would want someone else to act.
Right.
If you were the other guy, and a lot of times I think that gets pushed to the side to get that trophy photo to be successful. And you remember back when we were, hunting mule deer we'd go in the spring early when it would just open, and then we'd go again in like November over Thanksgiving, and like we were there for the experience. There was no social media then. They had like MySpace. And like the pictures that we took, like you have them on your desk, that's cherishing the memory. It's like that's for you. That's not for anybody else. And I feel like everybody has moved to try to do things to impress their peers, and it's for not as much the right reason. You can still be passionate about something, but if like part of the goal is to show a picture to all your friends and everything like that, I think step back, think about it a little more. Concentrate on the experience, and maybe 10 years down the road when you can find that memory card with those photos on it, look at them. So, and I got caught up in it too. I mean, for a few years, I posted a lot of my success on social media, and then I was running into people in the mountains, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, I know who you are. I saw what you did. I saw what you killed." And I'm like, next thing you know, there's like, "Oh, I know where he hunts," and then there's that added pressure and everything else.
Yeah.
And it's I think that's kind of a Western thing, because we have public land that anybody can come hunt at any given point in time. But I've had experiences with people in the field where, you're just working with them to make sure you both don't have interactions on, after the same animal in a situation or something like that. And I've had guys completely like take the information that I've been forthcoming about and then burn me with it.
Yep.
And I think, I mean, social media is awesome because it's showing us the potential that's out there, that, we're sharing, opportunities. And that's why in the West, I mean, to draw a tag anymore, there are hardly any over-the-counter tags anymore. And it's only going to get worse. So you gotta kind of look at, why you're doing things, how you're doing things, and everything else. So I think, to the whole picture taking thing, I've kind of gotten out of it, but I really need to think about it in the long term, because maybe when I have pictures to show my grandkids of some of the achievements that I've been able to do. So, and I try not to make it a big deal. Like, I'm not the best hunter in the world. I never will be. But I think what lends itself to success is using your brain and putting in the time. And you
Yeah.
touched on that, Ricky, and just the amount of, like, I might not be able to get your strings ordered on time, but if I got a target acquired situation in the field with a particular animal, chances are I'm going to concentrate on that at the highest level of concentration you'll probably see out of me on anything.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So,
sure. I mean, I know you work hard, that's the thing is, and people don't get that, but I know you're scouting, you're out there a lot, and you do have the luxury of, having a career that affords some of that stuff, which is amazing too, and that's just kind of, you put yourself in that position, to help with your success, and so I'm kind of scrolling through your Instagram here a little bit, and yeah, so the last thing you posted was a repost. It was 2018. And it's a really cool photo. You were up hunting with Sam, looks like. And then the one before.
yeah, Sam took that picture, yep.
Yeah, and then did Sam take the one too where you're over that elk and it says respect the animal, respect the game?
No, Kevin, my cousin, took that
Oh,
picture.
right on. Yeah, that was a great photo too.
I actually had a DSLR with me on that trip, and I shot that bull in the evening, and I backed out. It was a good shot. Bull went like 80 yards, but it was just one of those scenarios. I didn't hear him crash. His whole herd was just hanging out. They still didn't know what had happened, and I backed out and I climbed out. I talked to Kevin, so I said, I'm gonna throw this. I got my camera with. I'm gonna throw it in my pack just in case, and we found that bull dead in a bed, like it was less than 100 yards from the point of impact with the arrow, and the sun was coming up, and it was coming through the trees like that. I'm like, oh man, can you take a couple photos like this? And it was just, those turned out super awesome. Those pictures. So
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing. And it speaks a lot to, like you're saying, you know what I mean? Respect the animal, respect the game. I mean, and to kind of go back to what you were saying about, social media and all that kind of stuff. And I'm guilty of, posting some success photos and people like calling me out for where I was hunting, and sometimes you're just not thinking about it. You're all excited and you're like, man, this backdrop is just amazing. I got to get a photo with this backdrop. And then it's like, oh, I got to show this to the world. And then you post it. And then I got people going, bro, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, don't.
I know that spot.
yeah,
So, and then I'm like, oh man, so definitely been guilty of that for sure. I'm much more conscious of, being careful in that area now. But again, and like you were saying, you had cut out for a little bit there, and hopefully we were able to get it recorded on your end. But back when me and you used to hunt a ton together, we could get the tags over the counter. It was no problem, and now it's a lot more difficult to get tags. And so, and for good reason, I guess. I try to look at it as, a way of just, kind of trying to regulate how many people are out there running around. And, I guess there's probably I've run into a lot of people out in, the Western Prairie that, probably shouldn't be, they have no business being out there shooting animals with a bow. And so I'm sure there's a lot of that going on, a lot of potentially wounded animals, which I can't judge because I've done the same. I've wounded a couple of bucks, hunting with you. And, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, now I don't ever want that to happen again. I mean, and
yep.
and one thing I learned from you too is putting in an exhaustive search, because we've gone back and looked. We've gone back in the spring and looked, just to try to do everything we can to make sure that we, try to find that deer. There was that one where it was like, I had opportunities that I could have gone after other deer, but I was like, no, I'm not shooting another deer until I figure out what's going on with this one. And, I learned that from you too. So, respect the animal, respect the game, and that's awesome. That's one of the things that I've always really appreciated about you and just the way that you hunt.
No, thank you.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about, okay, so you got 2 little ones now, so you're a dad. And that's probably one of the biggest obstacles I think that we've probably ran into since as far in regards to us hunting together was, the kids came along, and because we haven't hunted together for a long time. Yeah, so you got 2 little ones. You got Kyler and Scout.
It's definitely life changing. But at the same time, looking into the future, like I've taken my boy to a bunch of 3D shoots with his little bow, and he loves it and everything like that. Like, you get to pass your passion on, and like, I took the kids fishing this last weekend, and having them reeling in fish that are almost pulling them off the boat is a pretty good time too. You know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
Like that, you're hovering right there. Like, if they ever lose control of that fishing rod, you can at least grab it and at least save the rod. Kind of a situation. So
yeah.
But no, man, it's definitely worth it for sure. So.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I know that I'm looking forward to, Coda's old enough now too, where I've been trying to get him out and do some stuff, but he's more, he likes to move. He doesn't have the patience to sit. And so as far as, hunting and stuff, he really likes grouse hunting. He likes to hit the trails, and he likes to shoot guns and, that sort of stuff. And then Emma, obviously she's going to be 3 here coming up pretty soon, but I feel like she's going to be she's really going to be into hunting. I think that she's really going to enjoy shooting a bow. We've already gotten out a lot. She loves animals. Hopefully not so much that she doesn't ever want to shoot one. But, and that's just it. It's amazing how kids can soften your heart, and make you and completely change you, right? Like, but at the same time, you still got to have your time out in the woods, and you got to do all that kind of stuff. So last year you were telling me a really cool story about how you shot your elk, and you had the kids there with you. Can you tell that story to our listeners about how that all went down? We'll be right back.
New for the 2023 archery season is our brand new online arrow customizer. Build your Victory or Easton arrows with multiple vane options, configurations, and custom arrow wraps in a large array of designs and colors. Spine indexing and expedited build options are also available, so you can get back out in the field and fling it in style. Check out the Vapor Trail Arrow Customizer at www.vaportrailarchery.com/arrow customizer.
Yeah. No, so I hunted 2 states last year. I spent a fair amount of time in the mountains early, hunting out of state, and then my wife she's got a tie-dye business, and she had a concert that she had gotten a booth at, and I told her I'd come out and help her with that. So I came out and helped her. Coming home on the weekends and stuff like that is kind of my MO. And then I can work from the field. I typically hunt places where I have full service, so I can hunt mornings and evenings, and then, maintain my workload during the day. So a lot of long days, and, sometimes there's a lot of naps that happen, but it works out. So after hunting the mountains, and I didn't really find anything I wanted to put my tag on, I helped my cousin a little bit, try to put his tag on something. After a couple weeks of that, I came home, helped my wife, and then hunted the second half of the season. And season was kind of winding down, and I'd been on a couple of good bulls the second half of the season, but nothing had worked out. And my wife, the last 2 years, had been working on her master's degree in education administration. So her workload with school and having 2 young kids was through the roof. So her we'll just say her tolerance of me being gone a lot was pretty much gone at the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, weather was looking good. I'm like, I'm taking the kids. I'm going to go back to a couple of my spots that I know I might be able to get something done on an elk. And she's like, good, take them. Get out of here. Pretty much. And I took them with me, and it was more about the experience for them.
Right.
I wanted them to hear elk bugles and see elk and everything, and short hikes, nothing crazy. Took them out to one spot, had coyote up in, had multiple bull elk bugling and stuff like that. And my daughter was like bugling back just with her voice. And they were like responding, of course they're off the public land that I could hunt. They were on private, but it was about the experience, I mean, it's kind of one of those things. And so we hunted that evening. I packed them up and I drove to the complete other side of the unit after dark. I forgot their favorite cereal for breakfast, so I stopped in the transition from one side of the unit to the other, and we're talking, over 100 miles. So it was a couple-hour drive, and I set up a movie for them after dark as we're driving to the other side. I couldn't find their favorite cereal, so I got blueberry pancakes for them.
Nice.
Just instant, mix it with water and everything like that. I'm like, I'll cook this for you tomorrow morning. So we get there. It's like, I don't know, 11:30. They're half zombied out in the back of the truck. I put them to bed. I know the movement pattern that the elk have been moving. I've been on a couple of big bulls in this spot. Woke them up before light, moved into one of the transition areas, and the first elk out right at first light. And this is me and my kids. I had no additional support. This was just me trying to keep them happy, keep them quiet, everything else.
And so they're 3 and 5, right?
3 and 5
3
at
years
this
old
time.
and 5 years old. and mind you, they have the same energy level that you do, which is through the roof.
Pretty much, yeah. I'm getting paid back for all the stuff I did.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
So, get them out there. The first elk out happens to be one of the nicer bulls that had been using this piece. And this is open country. This is not a lot of cover. I'm at a big juniper bush with the two kids. This bull walks by, and I'm probably, half a mile, 3/4 of a mile in, away from, where we camped.
Mm-hmm.
And this bull comes by. He comes out. I can see him. It's gray light, so you can see his general shape. If you throw the binoculars up, you can see a little more detail. And you're like, yes, that's a bull. Yes, that's a bull I would shoot. And then he starts coming by. He comes by at 130 yards, no shot. And he's moving through public up along the edge of this draw. And he kind of drops into one of the small arms in this draw. And before he's out of sight, I'm like, I think he's going to, just knowing animal behavior, I think he's going to hit that fork in the draw, and he's going to take the fork that's my side of the draw. So I turn to the kids and say, hey, just wait here. I'm going to run up there. You'll be able to see me. Just hold still, be quiet, And they were both in awe that this elk just walked out in front of them. They didn't make any noise. And then, this bull was slowing down. There were more bulls in the field that they were coming out of, and they were bugling a lot, and this bull had been silent. But we were ahead of him, and I'm like, okay. So he starts feeding as he kind of goes into this draw, like slowing down, like he's moving across this big open flat. He's at a good clip. He's at a good brisk walk, and then he gets back a little ways, kind of more concealed. He slows down, and I'm like, I can catch him now, And anybody that's ever tried to follow an animal with 4 legs, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when you only got 2, it's pretty tough to
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Chance.
But I kept up with him, and he did. He took that fork that was on my side of the draw, and I get up to the edge of this, we'll call it a ravine. It was about probably from lip to lip, it was probably 70 yards or 80 yards across. The bottom of it was flat and was probably 20 yards across, so that the sides of it kind of had, you know, some contour to it, you know, and typical, like, open country stuff. It has, you know, breaky stuff. It has, you know, little trails and stuff that the animals use to in and out, and it could be cattle, it could be deer, it could be elk, whatever it is. So I get up to the edge, and I immediately see his rack, and only his rack. And I pull up the rangefinder. I burn his rack several times, and it was like, I think it was like 63, 64 yards, 65 yards, something like that. And I like to shoot within my 5-pin. I don't shoot animals like I used to outside of that 60, 65 yard range, unless it's like the perfect scenario. I mean, that's kind of my limit.
Sure.
Back to, you know, respect to the animal and everything like that. I don't think in the last 10 years I've killed anything beyond about 60, 65.
Okay, yeah.
So I ranged him, and then I thought I'll just use his rack as like a bearing on what his condition is. And he had heard me coming
Okay.
in the grass, so he was looking my direction when I initially saw him, and I stopped, but all I could see was his rack, so he couldn't see me. And then as soon as I saw his rack start moving, I'm about 10 yards from the edge of the ravine that he's in, and as soon as he starts moving, I'm low stepping, you know, as slow as I can, but full strides to the edge. And I had an arrow nocked, and I thought, I'm going to match him step for step, and he's going to see me when I skyline from his angle, and he's going to stop, and he's going to look back. And as I started following him, as he's kind of taking steps out of the ravine, I get over probably within 2 or 3 yards of the edge. I figured he was at the same distance. Drew back, held my 60 just a little bit high. It ended up being 63 yards. He was quartering away, hit last rib, arrow buried to the offside shoulder. I was shooting a 3-blade expandable, an XO3 from B3, and he jumped on the shot, obviously, the reaction, and made it up the hill, and I think he made it like 60 yards and died.
Holy God.
That's so awesome.
And I you know, he gets up there, he's looking around like what happened, and then he fell over, like semi into a bed.
Oh, man.
Head's still up, so I'm still quiet, calm, collected. I'm like, okay, now what? What do I do? I'm like, you know, and immediately everything starts rushing through your head. Do I need to get closer for follow-up? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? And then he tried to get up, and he couldn't get up, and he fell over, and then he started kicking his legs, and then I knew he was done. And it was all probably 15 to 20 seconds total. And the rush of emotions that you go through in that scenario are pretty ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a situation where you never know.
Mm-hmm.
You never know until you walk up on them and you put your hands on them, what they're going to do. And the shot felt good. Initially, I thought, is that far back? But I, you know, in realizing that he was quartering away and I held where I needed to hold, the shot couldn't have been placed more perfect. You know, right around that last rib, hit the offside shoulder, buried to just about the fletch.
Jeez.
And then I walked back to the kids and grabbed them, and I was like, you know, they hadn't moved. They'd done exactly what they were supposed to do, and they remained quiet. I'm like, okay. So we walked back out towards the truck, kind of got rid of a bunch of stuff that I didn't need, kind of started to settle everything down, kind of get ready to go back in. And that's, I mean, that was it. I was able to get the whole elk packed out to the truck. There was a gentleman that stopped and was talking to me, and he was gracious enough to help.
Oh, that's
Sweet.
cool.
He was more than happy to like, you know, and it was in the open. Like, there was a certain point where if you kind of walked up on this little hill, you could look over to where it was, and there's a big animal laying in the middle of this big flat, you know, that stuck out like a sore thumb. And you know, he was like, yeah, I'll help you. And he was like, oh, let me take this quarter back while you're breaking them down, and then I'll come back and we'll get the next two together, and then you can come back and get the last one. So his name was John. He was a super, super nice guy. I still have his number and stuff.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Were your kids there helping you pack that thing out too, and you showing them how to dress it? And
no,
all that?
absolutely not. They destroyed everything in my pack. While I was there, I had a brand new like black diamond headlamp with a big lithium ion battery pack on it that went missing. I had a card reader. I carry a card reader around to check cameras when I'm out. Yeah. And the screen was shattered in that. My daughter had every snack in my pack eaten.
Of course.
You know, my son did too. And it's funny because I knew exactly where everything was, and like a month later I was in that area, and I made the drive down to that spot, and I walked in that half mile after dark. I had a big flashlight, and if anybody's ever used those black diamond headlamps, they have a reflective logo on them. So I walked back to the carcass with a flashlight. I panned around, and sure enough, about 15 yards away from the carcass on the other side of a big sage bush was my headlamp. So got it back. But so we got back to the truck, and I was able to cook them breakfast, and they got their blueberry pancakes and everything else, and then we made it home by about dark. And yeah, I mean, it was a good bull. It was a bull that I'd had some encounters with earlier in the year, but didn't get it done. I think he went just over 350. He scored like 352 for reference. So
Nice.
The kids didn't want anything to do with being anywhere near it for pictures.
Oh, really?
I've got, you know, my phone was set to like motion pictures, and so I've got like little 3 second like splits of the actual picture, and my daughter's like holding their nose and kicking, trying to get out of my arms. And my son wouldn't get near it. You know, my daughter was fine until my son wasn't, and then you know how kids can kind of just absorb each other's opinion.
Yep.
So, but no, that hunting experience, and you know, I don't know how I'm as fortunate as I am, but it seems like I say this every couple of years. I'm like, that'll be tough to top. That'll be tough to top. And I've told a couple people this story that are, you know, that are in my, you know, my friend group and stuff, and they're like, yeah, I think you hit a point where you're not ever gonna beat that one out. I mean, there's no size animal, no nothing can really surpass an experience like that with your kids and everything else.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I don't know about Scout. I try to think of when I was, I don't know if I remember a lot from when I was 3, but I imagine, if I was Kyler's age, I would probably remember that for my entire life. Whether it be a good memory or bad, I don't know. But it's just really cool that they were there. And so when you went back to them after you shot that bull, did you tell them right away that you shot it and that it was dead, or did you just said, hey, let's pack it up and go back to the truck, or how did that go down?
Well, I went back and Scout, I don't remember specifically, but I remember telling him, like, yeah, Daddy got him. And Scout, in my best 3-year-old voice, did you catch him?
Of course.
Like it was one of those things where they were both still pretty zombied out.
Yeah, for sure.
If anybody's put a toddler to bed at like 11:30 and then woke them up at like 5:30 the next morning, I mean, you kind of don't know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
You're gonna get
Yeah.
either a zombie that's just gonna be quiet and do exactly what you say, or somebody that's gonna whine and sob and cry, or somebody that's gonna scream and lash out at you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's definitely meant to happen, just because, you think about that, all the things that could have gone wrong, and, one of the kids, they could have started fighting or something over there, making all kinds of noise and alerted the bull, or there's, so many different things could have happened, and the fact that they were just there, just chilling and staying quiet and providing you that opportunity to get in and take the shot is just, I don't know, such a cool story. And again, yeah, you're probably going to have a hard time topping it, but either way, what a cool story, man.
definitely.
You might have to send me some photos from some of your hero shots from that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I can do that. No, absolutely. I'm proud of that. I don't know a lot of people that have found success bow hunting with a 3 and a 5-year-old.
Yeah, and I don't know that they ever will.
Yeah, myself, I don't even have kids yet, so I'd say I'm fortunate, but unfortunate, because right now would be a killer time to be running state to state, and doing all these hunts. But oh my God, with all the points that you need to allocate, and man, I would have had to start when I was like 17. For some states now, so it's kind of unfortunate for me, but it is kind of nice going home, just be like, yeah, I'm gonna go hunting. So
yeah,
see ya. Have fun with the dogs.
I was just gonna say, take advantage of this opportunity for a little while, because those first few years are, tough to get out and run around, but yeah, you got a good role model for a dad, you know what I mean? So
right,
no doubt in my mind you'll be a good dad as well, and definitely need to be one someday.
Well, I mean, like, look at Ears too. I mean, he had his kid, and I don't know how much he's really been hunting either, because Sawyer's like maybe 3 or 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Not cool. I can't remember now. 2.
Yeah, 2, maybe going on 3. But yeah, I mean, I would, like I said, I'd love to be running around. And this year I was thinking about going out elk hunting, but with that house, not a chance.
Yeah.
There's no chance that I'm going to be spending $1,700 on a tag on top of a mortgage. So,
right.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll have that chance. I don't know if I'll be elk hunting with kids either, but
yeah,
definitely whitetail. That'd be sweet. My dad used to bring me out when I was that age, and I'd watch, and it was so awesome doing that. Where Kyler and Scout, was their nasty face because the rutted up bull, or because I've never been around a rutted up elk, but I've heard they can stink quite greatly. But
oh yeah, they've got definitely an odor to them. I mean, just like a whitetail in mid-November, you kill one and it's one of those smells that you just know. Antelope have one, elk have one. And whitetails have them, mule deer have them. I mean, once you've smelled it, it's indistinguishable, and it's something that stays with you.
That is something I remember when I was like 5 years old or 6 years old when my dad killed his deer. Like, that smell of their glands is just like, oh,
yeah,
good Lord. And then, I got to witness the fortunate event of like maybe one of 2 or 3 deer he's ever poked a gut on. And I was like, oh my God. I'm sitting there on the log watching Dad, gut this thing. I'm like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But it was also so cool. And I think that's what, obviously got me to where I am, and being not pushed into it, but guided into it. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, right now, I mean, last year was great when I was running around out west. It was just like, call the wife. How are you doing? Great. Sweet. All right. Good night. I'm going. Like, there's nothing to worry about. I can just do what I want, not have to worry. But yeah, definitely one day it'd be sweet to share that. opportunity.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you want to try and find Ben, good luck, because you're going to have to cover a lot of ground in the prairies and mountains of the West. He is non-existent on social media. I mean, you can find him and you can look at his past. And who knows, maybe this podcast might prompt him to get back out there. But even if you don't totally get it, there's no need for that. As long as you just, like the advice he said, just have fun with it and don't focus so much on showing off what you're doing and beating your chest and all of that.
Right. Even if you can't find Ben on social media, just know there's this super cool orange-bearded Viking running around somewhere. But you can find us on The Range Podcast or at The Range Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And you can find me, Jake Ivy3, on Instagram if you like to see a lot of failure and pictures of dirt and grass, because I don't kill a lot. Or you can find me on Facebook, Jake Iverson and Hollywood in parentheses. Where can they find you, Rick?
You can find me at ricky.wayne80 on Instagram and Ricky W. Bruley on Facebook. Again, please be sure to head over to our Vapor Trail YouTube channel. If you like the video, hit that thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe so you can be up to date on all things archery. If you are listening, make sure to give us a rating and be certain to give us 5 stars. Big thanks again, Ben, for taking the time out of your day on the road to hang out with us. Yeah, man, looking forward to getting this one out there and so people can hear the amazing story of elk hunting with your kids. And, yeah, man, thanks a ton. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Ben.
No, appreciate you guys having me on, man. It's always fun to gab about hunting and stuff. So
Yeah.
Damn straight.
For sure, and I think we honestly just barely scratched the surface. So hopefully we can have you on again sometime. Really appreciate it again. And with that, we are going to pack up our bows and arrows, and we are going to leave the range. Have a great day, everybody.
Peace.
Vapor Trail is now offering an exclusive discount to the Range Podcast listeners. Enter promo code TRP15, that's TRP15, at checkout for 15% off VTX bowstrings and Vapor Trail and Stokerized branded t-shirts, hats, and other gear.
Heard it. Nice shot.
Oh, what in the hell went flying? And I think he cut the tube at the bottom.